Hey everybody, Eric Renier here with Philippe J. Fournier for this week's episode of The Numbers. Philippe, does it, ça sent la coupe or what?
Ça sent la coupe. Oh, the Habs last night. Oh, that was such... I just dislike Tampa Bay so much. Not the city, I'm sure they're fine people. Well, maybe not, but those anthem singers, I can't, like, they sing wrong. Anyway, but aside
That's
from
the
that,
biggest problem with it. Yeah.
well, that's part of it. But ça sent la coupe. Game 6 in Montreal Friday. But Eric, there was some news last week. MPs resigning and not resigning.
Yeah.
We have tons of numbers. We have also provincial numbers, Alberta separation numbers that we always like to have from Janet Brown Opinion Research. Okay, Eric, where do you want to start today?
Yeah, the garbage is being
Is that you?
in front of the house, so my apologies for the people listening. But we'll start with some news, because we did have the news that we were all expecting and anticipating that Alexandre Boulerice, the NDP MP for Rosemont La Petite Patrie, announced that he would indeed be running for the nomination in the riding of Gouin for Québec Solidaire, and so will give up his seat. But the surprise was that he will not give up his seat just yet. Boulerice has decided that he will stay on as an independent MP until the election. I don't know what that means. It probably means that he'll resign somewhere in August.
Yeah, late August, yeah.
So that has some implications for the timeline in terms of by-elections. But then we also got news just this morning that Jonathan Wilkinson, the Liberal MP for North Vancouver Capilano, is going to be named, as again was expected, the ambassador to the European Union, replacing Stéphane Zion.
Yeah, it's such a great gig.
Not bad. Brussels is a nice city.
Yep.
I've been. It's actually quite nice. And anyway, but he will also be delaying his departure. He says he's going to retire or resign sometime in the summer when he takes the post. Okay. So this means we have two vacancies that are pending. We have the other one that we know presumably is coming from Nate Erskine-Smith, that he is going to, as he said, resign his seat in Beaches, East York. So we have three seats that are all going to be vacated probably in the summer.
Mm-hmm.
And that means that the timeline for the by-elections is a little bit up in the air. Let's say they're all vacated on August 1st, just for argument's sake.
Yeah.
They would have until February to call the by-election. And so it means that maybe we're not going to have some by-elections this summer. And even in the fall, with a Quebec election scheduled in October, if they want to group them all three together, maybe we're waiting until November, December, early next year.
I mean, November would make sense. We talked about this after the by-elections, the Liberal sweep in Toronto and in Terrebonne. If you're the Liberals, why would you wait? You're riding a wave right now. You're riding momentum. These are good. I mean, Monsieur Wilkinson's seat is pretty good. Erskine-Smith's seat is really, really good for the Liberals. And Rosemont La Petite Patrie is winnable for the Liberals. That'd be interesting who the NDP will pick for that.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to be a very interesting pick.
It won't be Lewis. He says he won't run there.
Well, yeah, he shouldn't. He has no relations here, and he would lose. So why would you waste your new leader aura? Eric, what I wonder is, why would Boulerice wait?
Yeah.
Like, why wait? I don't want to be the cynical guy. You know me. I'm not the cynical guy among us, right? But
is it me?
I'm kidding. But the thing is, aside from earning 3 months' salary, I do not understand why you would do this. Maybe you could say you can tour the riding because there's a big overlap between the provincial riding of Gouin and the federal riding of Rosemont La Petite Patrie. So you can still tour the riding and campaign for yourself for the provincial election as an MP, I guess. But the way he went out saying that, profession de foi souverainiste, he basically said, Quebec should be his own country, and I'm a sovereigntist now, and I'm going back home, he said. That feels like you should go, but he didn't. I wonder why. That's a strange one. Maybe it's to deprive the Liberals of a win in the short term. Would that be it?
Well, my thought is that maybe this is in a backhand, not a backhanded way, but in a subtle way, a favor to the NDP and Avi Lewis, because it means that this by-election will take place probably in November or December or January or somewhere later on. It'll actually take place after the Quebec election, which could change things up. Yeah. Right now, as you mentioned, Rosemont La Petite Patrie, with what we saw in Terrebonne, with the kind of momentum that seems to be on the Liberal side, not with the NDP all that much, they would have a very good chance of winning that seat, which would be an extra Liberal seat. It would also be a defeat for Avi Lewis, a real defeat for him, because the other 3 by-elections, first of all, they were Liberal seats, and secondly, he became leader in the middle of that campaign. But if there was a by-election, let's say in June, in Rosemont La Petite Patrie, and the NDP lost it, it would be a loss for the NDP.
Yeah.
They would lose a seat. Avi Lewis would lose a seat early on in his leadership, and that would be a pretty big blow. November, who knows what the situation is? Maybe the Liberals aren't strong enough to hold the seat, and the NDP can find a decent candidate, and there you go, they hold on to it. So I actually think it is in some way a bit of a favor to Avi Lewis, because I agree, I don't find I hate the term, but to say it's a good look to hang on as an independent MP getting the check from the federal government when you want to join the party that wants to separate from the federal government. But I don't think the voters in the riding are going to care that much, because he's well known and the party's Quebec Solidaire is pretty popular in Gouin. But yeah, I can see the logic there from a political point of view.
I guess that's a fair excuse. I guess I'm the cynical one here, because that makes sense actually. But it's a rare. I mean, we won't get into Quebec Solidaire right now. We don't have any Quebec numbers, but it's been a while since Quebec Solidaire had some good news, and that's good news for them, because they found somebody credible, somebody with notoriety, positive notoriety, to replace Gabriel Nadeau-Dubois in the riding of Gouin, which should be a pretty safe seat for Quebec Solidaire, and there's not that many of those anymore. So good news for Quebec Solidaire. What do we say about Mr. Wilkinson and his riding? This was a 20-point win for the Liberals. But would you describe, was it Vancouver Capilano? Is that
North Vancouver Capilano?
Yes.
Yeah.
Would you describe that seat as a safe Liberal seat? 20 point is good, but this wasn't a pretty good election for the Liberals. It's not a safe seat. It's a likely seat for the Liberals. Would you say?
Yeah. I mean, Harper, I think, won it in 2011, or at least what is the modern, on the modern boundaries. But I'd say, there's no real reason to think that the Liberals would lose a 20-point margin that they had. I think that North Vancouver Capilano is going to be actually a tough test for the Conservatives, because it reminds me a little bit more of, say, Scarborough Southwest, right? Which is, it's an urban suburban kind of riding where it's close to the city center of Vancouver. It's just across the Bird Inlet, I think. So it is kind of suburban, but it isn't entirely. Like Scarborough Southwest is the inner suburbs of Toronto, and the Conservatives had 30% or 31% in that riding the previous election. And it's not necessarily the kind of riding that the Conservatives have to win, although it was one of the seats that I think both of us had going Conservative when they were at 200 plus seats. Yeah. But it is the kind of seat where they should still have a respectable result, right? So if we see here in North Vancouver Capilano, whenever it happens, if the Conservatives drop vote share again, that wouldn't be a good sign for them. So I think I don't think it's going to be really a by-election that'll be up for grabs. Although, again, things could be very different if the by-election is taking place in November. Because there's also, I believe, the municipal elections in BC. Are they this year?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. So, there's these by-elections are going to be complicated in terms of when they can be held. But I think this one will actually be a good kind of gauge of where things stand in BC, because we've seen lots of movement in the polls in BC.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely, and if you add the third one of Monsieur Erskine-Smith, the OLP leadership race ends in November, so you could possibly have all three by-elections held together. So that's interesting. And you are right. I just checked. North Vancouver, Andrew Saxton of the Conservatives won it both in 2008 and in 2011 by pretty good margin. 2011 it was a 20-point margin. So
do you remember anything about Andrew Saxton? One thing in particular?
You say that with a smirk. Should I? I'm not sure I do. Remind me.
He was one of the 14 candidates who ran for the Conservative leadership.
That's
2017. Yeah, he was one of those who got 1%. And but anyway,
okay, good for him. So
those three, if they end up being all together, really interesting trio of by-elections.
Montreal,
right?
Vancouver, Toronto.
And one is the one that could flip. You got Rosemont La Petite Patrie, which will be like a little bit of a test as well for the Bloc in terms of its ability to compete on the island of Montreal. They used to hold this seat before the NDP won it. You have Beaches East York, where the NDP has historically had good results. So can they actually do anything there? And then North Vancouver, like I said, a little bit more of a test for the Conservatives, even though we would assume. Sorry, my chair just kind of moved over. We would kind of assume that the Liberals would win 2, potentially 3. Some good tests. Probably, I find this is a much more interesting trio than the ones we just had. Even though Terrebonne was very interesting, I think. But the other 2 are more interesting than the other 2. So on average, these are going to be interesting by-elections. So we're going to look forward to that.
Okay, Eric, on the federal numbers. It looks like we have a near consensus right now. Maybe not on the Conservatives, but we're on the Liberals stand. So we had 5 polls released in the past week. Liaison puts the Liberals at 45. Nanos puts the Liberals at 45. Abacus puts the Liberals at 45. ACOS puts the Liberals at 45. And then you have the Angustri Institute that have the Liberals at 42. As for the Conservatives, they are somewhere between 31 and 36. So low to mid 30s. So a big, healthy lead for the Liberals. Is there any narrative that emerges in there? I mean, is there something new, something that you watched that surprised you, or that is just steady as she goes from the numbers that we have seen for most of the winter and early spring?
I think it's that we are in this new holding pattern right now. So we had talked about it before if the Liberals had hit their ceiling, and it does seem like they have, somewhere around 45. And, if they're around 45, we're going to get an Angus Reid poll that has them at 42, like we did here. We'll probably get a Léger that has them at 47 or something. Next week. So that seems to be kind of the holding pattern right now where the Liberals are, which is a good spot to be. It's more support than they had last time. And for the Conservatives, it is not a good spot to be because they're down somewhere, as you said, on average, maybe 33, 34, which is, again, as I've mentioned before, the same results that Aaron O'Toole and Andrew Scheer got. And those weren't good results. They weren't winning results even when the Liberals were down into the low 30s. So I think it's that new holding pattern. Something about the NDP, I think, is interesting here. We got 3 polls that have them in double digits. Though if you look at the trend line, it's not really showing actual movement. ECOS actually has them down, even though ECOS has them higher than everybody else at 12.5. Yeah. They were at 15 the previous poll that ECOS did. Abacus and Nanos and Liaison all show them kind of in the same kind of levels. The Angustri Institute has them up a couple of points. It seems primarily in BC, which I think is something to keep an eye on. But apart from that, it just seems like we're in this new kind of holding pattern. And I wouldn't be shocked if we kind of keep treading these waters for the next few months.
So I wrote a column for L'Actualité. It will be out later today. It was on, of course, it's not original, but it was on the 1-year anniversary of the election. Where do things stand right now? And how have the numbers moved since this liberal surge that we saw in the winter after the Davos speech and after especially the conservative confidence vote. In the Nanos tracker, now we have a little over-under on this, my friend, on the Nanos tracker of the preferred prime minister. Carney is still leading by a lot. So the latest update is Carney has 50%. And Poilievre has 26%. That's a 24-point lead. That's undisputably a great number for Monsieur Poilievre, for Monsieur Carney. Apologies. However, Carney was at 57 a month and a half ago, and Poilievre was at 22. So +4 for Poilievre in 6 weeks, and -7 for Monsieur Carney in 6 weeks.
I have to point out, Nanos had him at 49.8.
Yeah, but we round to the nearest.
I know. The whole thing was about when
below 50. I know 50. It's over. But I think it wasn't the over underline May 1st. I think it was. Yeah, we had bet that he would get under 50 on May 1st, and just April 30th. It's like, but okay, but
also it was that he would stay under 50, not just
he would stay under 50.
Once.
Right,
yeah.
He could bounce back. Now, Eric, is this simple regression to the mean? Or are we seeing here, as you said, the Liberals peaked, hit a plateau and are coming slowly down to earth. Because when we see movement on the leaders, sometimes movement on the parties follows shortly after. 57% for Carney was not sustainable. We know that. It was the highest it has been for any prime minister in the tracker in, 12 years. But if it goes down to 46, 45, and Mr. Poilievre inches up to the high 20s, are we seeing a real trend, or is that regression to the mean in your view?
I think it's actually... I do think it could be a real thing, because I do think that the high 50s, low mid-50s were kind of unsustainable. And I think that what we've seen is maybe as Pierre Poilievre's leadership kind of gets a little bit more, I wouldn't say solidified, but that he's there and presumably going to stay. And now the NDP has a leader.
Yeah,
I think you're seeing that some of that support is going back to where they should be. And I think the number of people who say none of the above or I don't know has also dropped.
Yeah.
So I think that might be what's at stake here. Like Lewis is at 5%. Which isn't very high, but Davies would usually be at 2 or 3, right?
Yep.
So there's an extra couple of points that have gone to the NDP because they have a new leader in place. And I wouldn't be surprised if there was some, soft NDP supporters who like the Liberals. When they looked at the list, they said, well, Carney would be the better prime minister because Davies isn't an actual leader of the party. Like you have the same thing with Blanchet. Like he doesn't match the Bloc's numbers, in part because some Bloc voters who don't dislike the Liberals might say, well, Blanchet wouldn't be a good prime minister, because that would be kind of nonsensical. But I do think that if we say around here with Carney, somewhere around the 50 and Poilievre around the 26, 27, I think, and the voting intentions stay in this kind of plateau that I mentioned, then again, that wouldn't surprise me too much. And I think it would be kind of natural based on the party support at the moment.
More numbers. I'm taking the Abacus poll that was released on Sunday. Abacus is the one that has the Conservatives the highest, not by much, 36. 12-point lead for the Liberals in Ontario, 50 to 38. In Quebec, 43 Liberals, basically what they had in the election, 30 for the Bloc, so a 13-point lead. In British Columbia, Abacus has 48 for the Liberals and 34 for the Conservatives. That's a lot of seats, considering that they were a point apart 1 year ago in British Columbia. A 14-point lead would it would be devastating for the NDP, but that's a lot of seats. And yet that's the best poll for the Conservatives right now. It's not getting better for Mr. Poilievre in the past few weeks. I was wondering, at some point, Mr. Carney would come down from his high, and Poilievre would pick the points, but so far he hasn't.
And in BC, we did see as well, we should mention, the Angus Reid poll had a tie between the Liberals and the Conservatives. But I think on average we've seen...
I didn't see that.
But I think on average we've seen that the Liberals have a lead. So with the smaller sample sizes, you would once in a while expect, something that would be a huge lead, because we have seen some numbers where it'd be like 20, 25 plus lead for the Liberals in BC, and then you'd have a tie here like this. But BC, I think, is actually really interesting to keep an eye on, because BC politics right now, it's pretty, there's lots going on, right?
Yeah.
So I think that has some volatility when it comes to the federal level, with the BC Conservative leadership race, all the debate over the DRIPA legislation and all this. Some things could be in motion in BC, and so we'll have to keep an eye on that.
The BC Conservative leadership race is spicy, for sure. We haven't talked much about it because we haven't had that many numbers to decipher. I assume that many BC firms, I'm looking at you, Angus Reid and Research Co., will have numbers on that race before the end. I think it ends May 30th or thereabouts, right? But we'll talk about that in coming weeks. Yeah.
Okay. Is Ontario becoming interesting? We've had three
Said no
polls.
one ever.
We've had three polls over the last week or two.
Yep.
And for the first time, the PC's first time since the last election, PC lead is not really all that safe. And in one of these three polls, the Liberals, the Ontario Liberals, were in front.
And it's the most recent one that has the Liberals in front. Now, we should say, I wrote a post and people online were kind of offended. I said the leaderless Liberal. I mean permanent leader. Of course, John Fraser is the leader of the Liberals, but he's not a permanent leader. He's not going to lead the Liberals into the next election. But isn't it interesting that we see this story about the jet from Bombardier that the Ford government purchased and then canceled the purchase or sold it back to Bombardier? Of all the stories that came out during the 8 years of the Ford regime, I don't want to say regime, it's not the right word, but the Ford years, right? But you know what I mean. It's a turn of phrase. This seems to have hit like a string, a nerve that people didn't like. And now we see that the Liberals, even though we don't know who's going to lead them into the next election, are statistically tied with the Conservatives. Now, of course, there is uncertainty in the numbers, and the regionals of some of these polls are kind of strange. But these are regionals, so we don't place too much importance on it. But so it seems to be that the numbers are in flux. The NDP polling from somewhere from 17, according to Abacus data, all the way to 24 from Palace data, with Liaison Strategies at 20%. There's a huge difference if the NDP is at 17 or 24. Given that the NDP has been really good at holding their own seats, even though their popular vote tanked last year, Eric, that would be really hard to reach a majority for anybody with these numbers, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, with the PCs and the Liberals effectively tied in these polls, there would be probably still a PC advantage because I think that they still have a better map than the other parties. But this could potentially produce a minority government, maybe with the PCs having the most seats, but I don't know if the other parties would want to continue to see Doug Ford as premier. So, but you know what's really kind of funny about it?
Tell me.
If there had been the fixed election date laws, which I think have been removed from the Ontario Elections Act, Doug Ford would be dropping the writ like this weekend. And he's pretty lucky that he's not.
Yeah. Well, conservative voters don't have a tendency to punish their leaders when they call a snap election, but year and a half would be a bit pushing it, though. But I see what you mean there. It's interesting also, aside with these numbers, also the approval numbers for Mr. Ford have gone down. Abacus has them in the negative, in most negative I've seen in a while. Something's going on in Ontario. Maybe 3 terms is a limit. The third term is not going so well for Mr. Ford, even though he won handily and easily last year. But these numbers are to be continued. I'm really curious to see where it goes in the fall.
Yeah, especially once the OLP has a new leader, because I should mention the Abacus poll, which had a 1-point gap between the PCs and the Liberals, had, if I'm not mistaken, a 16-point gap or something like that between Ford and Stiles and Fraser. So a lot of this Liberal support might be a little bit Carney-coded. And right. If when there's a new leader in place, things could change.
You want to take a look at the Alberta?
Yes.
Okay, so Janet Brown, Opinion Research. Thank you, CBC Calgary, for commissioning a poll from Janet Brown. We always enjoy those polls. Took a look at voting intentions and also support for Alberta independence. How would you describe these numbers, Eric? Because I don't think there's a huge surprise in there. Voting intentions was 49 for the UCP, 36 for the NDP, so not that great for the NDP. That's not, if those numbers were to hold until the next ballot, which could be soon, that would not be a competitive election now, would it?
No. And especially when you look at the regionals, Janet Brown had an 11-point lead for the UCP in Calgary, which is enough. That's the only number you need to know, effectively, because the NDP can't win if they're not winning in Calgary. They're ahead by 7 at Edmonton, which isn't that much, and the UCP has a huge lead outside of the 2 cities. Now, the poll had an extra 15%. Half of it were saying there was support for other parties. And I appreciate how Janet Brown Opinion Research does it. They ask who you can vote for, and if you say other, it says, okay, what's
There
the
you
other
go.
party? And then it has
That's
this
the way.
huge list. I don't know if it's actually prompted or people can just say whatever they want. But either way, there was about 8 or 7% who chose another party. And then the remaining group this is a bit different, is unspecified. So if I understand correctly, they're more or less people who say that they're going to vote, but they don't know for who. So they're effectively undecided, I guess. I'm not really sure how to consider these voters. But the thing is that the UCP is already starting at 49.
Yeah.
So even if the NDP was able to get all of those people, they only kind of make the election a bit competitive, but they don't get any close to winning it, right? Because if the UCP is already at half the vote. So there's not too many surprises in these numbers. But things are still going good for the UCP. You mentioned whether they would hold off until next year to have the election as scheduled or do it earlier.
Oh.
I wonder if they would want to do it sooner. I don't know if they'd want to have an election that is done in the shadow of the referendum, independence referendum, because that might polarize the vote in a way that they might not want, right? If all the Federalist vote goes to the NDP, they'd probably like to get that referendum out of the way one way or the other before they go to the polls, but who knows? It's a bit unpredictable what's happening in Alberta these days.
The lines are blurry between pro-separatist and pro-conservatives here. We saw from these numbers that pretty much virtually all of the pro-separation movement are all on the side of the conservatives.
Yeah, it was 98-2 against independence among NDP voters, and I think among that other group it was 89-11.
No, okay, so yeah, it's very marginal. It's just that if you are a federalist, right of center, conservative voter, it would take a lot for you to just say, I'm voting for Nahi Nenshi and the NDP.
Mm-hmm.
Like the step is really big between those two parties, and I think most of those voters, federalist and right of center, would prefer to stick with the UCP and try to block them from inside, from the separatists from overtaking the party. But yeah, I see these numbers, and if I'm a strategist for Madame Smith, I would call the election the fall. Like let's have a full frontal referendum and election at the same time, and then get on with it. Now the election is scheduled for October 27. So that's a year and a half from now. Going 1 year early, do you think that voters would punish Madame Smith at all for this? I don't see it. But
probably not. But I wonder if having an election campaign in the midst of a referendum campaign, I don't know. Like that's
trouble.
It's not that it's trouble. It's just that if you have a safe lead in the polls, do you want to really throw all these wild cards on the table in your re-election bid? I think a referendum, the question on independence, Janet Brown found 27% would vote for, 67% against. And that's pretty consistent with numbers we've seen for a while. It's also consistent with the last time she was in the field, like a year ago or whatever. So we haven't really seen much movement, but we've seen before how referendum campaigns can take on a bit of a life of their own.
Oh yeah.
And the difference for the future of Alberta between a referendum that is won 70-30 and a referendum that is won 59-41 is pretty big.
That's right. That's right.
A 70-30 means it's put to bed.
It's
a
over.
59-41 means maybe this is going to be coming back and returning to this issue again.
À la prochaine. Yeah.
And yes, exactly. And that is that does not put it to bed. It keeps it rustling around in somewhere. I don't know what the alternative is to being put to bed. Still running around the house. It could break a window at any point. But anyway, so we'll see what's going to happen here. The numbers have been pretty consistent in Alberta for a while, so we haven't seen much movement, which I'm sure is quite dispiriting to the NDP because they've thrown a lot of things at the wall and nothing seems to work. But I don't know. If we're heading to a referendum in Alberta in the fall, I would not take anything for granted.
I have over 60 seats for the UCP with those numbers in my projection, and that's taking the old map. We still don't know what the new map will be. Yeah. There's a little controversy here with when you have MLAs, elected officials, drawing their own maps. It's a bad precedent, but they don't even need to gerrymander the map to win with these numbers.
No,
it would just be rubbing it in, right? So yeah.
We'll follow. We'll get to that when we see what the new map is. It's
in Quebec as well.
Story.
We'll get to that at some point. Those whiners in Gaspésie. I'm kidding. Kidding.
Hey. Watch yourself, sir. Do we have time for a quiz this week?
We do. Okay, what time is it? Okay, we have. Also, I want to say something about the quizzes. Eric, I had a lot of submissions in the past week. I'm really glad about this. Listeners and viewers and members submitted a lot of questions. Some of them really hard, and I learned a lot. So I want to tell all these people, maybe I haven't replied to you just yet. It's just because there were too many. So I apologize. I will get to you. I promise. It's just also that when you send me quiz questions, I have to fact check them. It's not that I don't believe you, but I cannot let a mistake or a falsehood slip into a quiz. That would be a bad look. So it takes time. But I want to thank you for your submissions. And I'm using a submission from a gentleman. His name is... Oh, I should have written down. Mr. Murphy, Dr. Murphy of Queen's University, who submitted this question. I did make a change on the format, but I think you're going to like this. This is like when video games started to have open world video games, it changed everything for me. Like, it's not linear, you go from one to the other to the other. It's just an open world. So this is basically an open world. Do you remember last week we talked about, I think I had quiz questions that in winning elections, who won the more seats between, I think it was Justin Trudeau and Jean Chrétien. Well, that inspired this gentleman who said, okay, in all of Canadian history, federal history, who were the winningest losers?
Winningest losers. Ooh.
That's right. So you accumulate seats won by these leaders only in losing elections. So who are the top 6 winningest losers? Now, I say top 6 because here's what we'll do. You give me names. You have 3 strikes. And the third strike, the game is over. You have to find 6 party leaders and count only the elections that they lost and add the seats. Now, I have it here. Positions 1, 2, and 3 are worth 2 points. Positions 4, 5, and 6 are worth 1 point. That's a total of 9 points. To get gold, you have to have 9 out of 9. To get silver, you need 7. And to get bronze, you need 5. So here's the game, Eric. You tell me party leaders who won the most seats only in losing elections, in lost elections.
I got to do 6. Okay. Oh, man. Okay. Well, I mean, the first place to start is the leaders who had the most elections, right?
That's right. That helps.
Poilievre just won a lot of seats, but this is only one. So you got to have some leaders who lost many elections. So Laurier lost. He lost in 1891. He lost in 1911. He lost in 1917, and he did okay in those 3. So Laurier, I'm going to suggest is one of them. Okay,
let's go one by one. Do you enter Laurier?
Yes, I'm going to put Laurier as one of them.
Laurier is second place. Okay. So you're right. He won 92 seats in 1891, 86 seats in 1911, and 82 seats in 1917. So that's a total of 260, and he's second all time in losing scenarios. So you have
the fact that he's second tells me quite a bit that there's not that many. All right. Well, okay. So Laurier would be one.
Okay.
Now Tupper was in for 2 elections, 1896 and 1900, and he might have done okay, but I'm not going to suggest him just yet.
Okay.
Borden was also in 2 in 1904 and 1908, so I'm going to hold off on him. I got to think that number 1 is probably going to be Robert Stanfield, because he lost in 68, in 72, and 74, and did pretty well in 72, so I'm guessing he's probably somewhere well north of 200 seats, so Robert Stanfield would be number 2, I'm going to say.
Robert Stanfield is the top spot with 274 combined seats in losing scenarios, and you are correct, 68, 72, and 74. So you are correct, you have 4 points and no strikes.
Okay. I'm trying to think of who else lost several elections. Here's a little question for you. Mackenzie King, is his 1925 election considered a defeat?
Yes.
Okay. So he lost in 25 and he lost in 1930, so that's 2. George Drew lost.
You also have to think of like losses where they did okay. Right?
Yeah.
If you get crushed, you don't get accumulated seats, yeah.
George Drew lost in 1945 and 1953, so that would be 2. But I think actually one of them is probably going to be Gilles Duceppe, because he would have won 50-ish, 40 or to 50 seats in 97, in 2000, 2004, 2006, 2008. So I'm going to say Gilles Duceppe is going to be one of them.
Which is funny because Dr. Murphy of Queen's University, who submitted this, did not include Gilles Duceppe in there, but I had to, and I looked.
It's probably
Gilles
just thinking
Duceppe,
opposition leaders, right?
Yeah, exactly. And it's okay. It's fine. Gilles Duceppe was there for 7 elections, and he won 250 seats. He's 3rd all time. So you have the top 3 locked up. You have 6. You have bronze locked up. Now I need the bottom 3, but you still don't have any strikes. So you're doing well, my friend.
Now, are any NDP ones in there? I mean, Leighton had 4 elections, right? So he won 19 seats, then he won 20... He won 19 seats, then he won 27, I think, or something. And then he won 37, and then he won 103, which puts him somewhere 150... let's see, I don't... Okay, so I've got 3. So I've mentioned there's Borden, I've mentioned King, and I've mentioned... now Drew, who had 2, and I've mentioned Jack Layton, who had a bunch. But then there's Arthur Meehan, who lost in 21 and 26. And those were 2 good elections too. But I don't know if he even got the 200 seats there. Okay, I'm going to say... Well, this is actually pretty tough. I'm going to say Robert Borden is going to be one of them.
Robert Borden is not in the top 6. You get the first strike.
Okay. Okay. Okay, if Borden's not in, then Drew's definitely not going to be in because he didn't do that well. So now I'm looking at Mackenzie King. Did he do it well enough? In 25, he won a lot of seats, and then in 30, I think he probably won enough. Did he win more than Borden? Mackenzie King.
Mackenzie King, in his 2 election defeats, in 25 and in 30, won 190 seats, which is good for 6th place. So yes, you have the point there. So you got silver locked up, and you have 1 strike.
And I need 2
You're
more.
missing position 4 and 5.
Okay. How many did you say King had seats?
190.
190. So would Jack Layton have been there? So he would be at 140, and then he'd be at 160 something, and then no, he wouldn't be there. Oh man. This is really good. Okay.
Thank you, Dr. Murphy.
Yeah. Okay, could be Edward Blake, because he'd be 82 and 87, but I don't think he won enough. Tupper, did he win enough? Did he win over 200 seats? Laurier did well. This is really tough, because now I'm running out of leaders. So I got George Drew. Diefenbaker lost in 50... No, he didn't lose in... No, he lost in 62 and 63. So I'm going to say John Diefenbaker.
Now, hang on here. I may have a mistake here then. Hang on. Let me just point of order. Let me just check here. John Diefenbaker is in the top 6.
Okay.
It's just that I think I may have skipped an election here. Hang on here. When did you say? I wrote that Diefenbaker was leader in 63 and 65. Was I wrong?
Oh, yeah, you're right. He was. So he would have 3. He would have lost in 62,
okay,
63.
well, that means...
No, he won in 62. Sorry, he lost in 63 and 65.
Okay, well, okay.
Yes.
So he had 192 seats.
Okay,
sorry, yeah. So he's good for 5th place. So you have 8 points. You need that last guy. You still have...
well, then it's probably... No. Could it be Pearson in 58 and 62? No, I don't think he would have won 190.
You still have a strike.
I still have a strike, eh? Joe Clark Turner wouldn't have done all that well. Harper lost only in 2004, but he also lost in 2011. But that would be 160.
Wait,
No.
what? Wait.
2011,
he won a majority.
Sorry, 2015. Sorry.
Okay.
Sorry.
Just make sure. Just making sure.
Actually, it could be Harper. I'm going to say it was Stephen Harper. In his 2 losses in 2004 and 2015, he probably won nearly 200 seats.
In these 2 defeats, Stephen Harper won 99 seats. Both. That's 198. That's 4th place. That's
Yes.
Stephen Harper. And you have gold.
I got all 6. I only missed 1. I only
In
got 1 mistake.
7th place with 188 is Jack Layton.
Oh.
So, yeah, there was Tupper and Blake a bit lower there. So the thing is, at some point there are some, like, also I think Blake, didn't he win or contest an election? He was a temp leader. He was a temporary leader. So
Blake was a whiny temporary leader all the time. I hate Edward Blake. Worst leader ever.
Was it? Oh, that sounds like a good draft idea, my friend. So, okay, so you got all top 6. Robert Stanfield, Wilfrid Laurier, Gilles Duceppe, 3rd place. Stephen Harper, I mean, he won 3 elections, but he also lost 2. And he did well in those 2. Diefenbaker, Mackenzie Kings, all the top 6. Congratulations,
Hey, here's
Eric.
a question.
You get gold. I'm sorry?
Here's a question.
Okay.
Will Pierre Poilievre make the list?
Pierre Poilievre was actually in the top 10.
He only needs 1 more, really, to quit. Because if he gets at least 60 seats or so, he's going to be on that list. So
That's right.
we'll see. Anyway, thanks for thanks to the Professor Murphy for
That's
the
right.
question. My alma mater, Queen's University. I hope I made Queens proud. There you go. All right, number of the week. How about I'm going to go. There's one from this morning that I saw in the Angus Reid poll. It's 51%. So this is the percentage of Canadians who say they're confident in Mark Carney and the Canadian government to deliver a good deal in negotiations with the United States. So you got 51% of Canadians who say they have a lot or they're confident, very confident or confident in Carney and the team around him to do it. 42% say they're not. What's interesting about this is that we are now a year past the last election. We seem to be no real closer to the negotiations than we were before. And the percentage of people who say they're confident is up 9 points since September. It's up 5 points since July. So despite the fact that these negotiations seem to have drawn out, and who knows where they're going to go, if they go anywhere, Canadians have more confidence than they did before. And I think that kind of explains a lot of the positive numbers we've seen for the Liberals lately. I think in the last election, Carney was a little bit like a resume, and people were figuring out if he filled the resume. And now I think that he actually people have a view of who he is and all this. And so far it seems like that confidence is not breaking yet. So we'll see how it goes, especially after the summer when presumably we'll find out if they succeed or not.
Interesting. My number of the week is from the same poll. Again, it was released early this morning by the Angus Reid Institute. So you said that 51% have confidence or are very confident in that Canada will have a fair deal soon. Among those who are not confident, then the Angus Reid Institute had a question for those people. It says, why aren't you confident? Is it because of Trump, he's too unpredictable, or is it because you don't have faith in Mr. Carney and his team? So when you break that down, 51% have confidence, as you just stated, Eric. 24% don't have confidence because of Carney, and 18% don't have confidence because of Trump. So it's a quarter of Canadians who basically blame Mr. Carney and the Liberals for not having a deal yet, which kind of makes sense when you look at voting intentions and you look at leader approval. It's a good number for Mr. Carney, but again, there are warning signs. We talked about the preferred PM, the numbers have gone down, and so sometimes it's a precursor to other movement. But yeah, a quarter of Canadians basically blame the federal government for not having a deal with the U.S., which I think the Liberals can live with. So
Interesting. Yeah. We'll see how long those kinds of things will drag on, right?
Yeah.
Eventually the buck stops with the government. We don't know when it will be. All right. Well, that'll be it for this week. Thanks to everybody for listening, watching, and sending along the quiz questions to Philippe. It's nice to have some variety too, right? Because even that's a different kind of thought question that we haven't done before, right? So it's nice to have some out of the box thinking. So appreciate that. If you'd like to join the podcast Patreon, you get early and ad-free episodes and bonus episodes. Earlier this week we did a mailbag episode, which is available for members. You can go to thenumberspod.ca. Philippe, we hope you have a good weekend. We got see if the Habs will be able to clinch it, and we'll chat next week.
Absolutely. Merci beaucoup, Eric. Merci beaucoup, tout le monde. Have a great weekend.